Hey ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, I am at 101 Poker Club, right there. I am in Katy, Texas. Gonna play in the 1-3 no limit hold'em. There is no maximum buy-in, so I plan to buy in for $500. Hope you guys enjoy. Please like and subscribe. Here we go.
Okay, before we get started, I'd like to know what your opinion is on bluffing at low stakes poker. I chose to go that route a few times during this session, and one of which was a very massive pot where I bluffed heavily on all three streets. Now, I wanted to capture more hands in this video than normal, so these first few hands didn't go too deep into the streets, but wanted to show you guys as many premium hands as I could and how I played them. Now let's get started. Okay, in this first reportable hand of the session, I am on the button and I look down at the best possible pre-flop hand in poker, pocket aces. The under the gun limbs, the middle position player limps, the hijack raises to $18, the cutoff calls $18, and yes, of course, I'm bumping this one up. But what is the appropriate bet sizing here? Well, you want to bet at least 3 times the initial raiser, plus any additional money that was put into the pot, right? So in this case, 3 times the initial raise is 54 bucks. Add 18 bucks from the cutoff and the 2 limpers, and that's 78 bucks. However, in this case, I chose to go a little bit of a lighter route and went with 70 bucks. In the long run, it didn't matter because everybody folded. You know, that's okay. Won at least a little bit here. I'll take it. Okay, in this hand, I'm in the cutoff and I look down at another premium, Ace-King offsuit. The under the gun +1 raises to 20 bucks. The hijack calls to $20, and yep, I'm bumping this one up. I 3-bet to $70, which again was a bit light like last hand. However, this time, the big blind calls, the +1 calls, and the hijack calls. Where was this action on the last hand? We haven't even seen a flop, and the pot is nearly 300 bucks. So we're 4 ways to a flop, which is 4, 8, 7 with 2 diamonds. The big blind checks, the +1 checks, the hijack checks, and I think I'm gonna check here. Yes, I have 2 overs, but I didn't really connect well with the board, so I end up making the check. The turn is the 3 of hearts. The big blind checks, and this time the +1 bets 125 bucks. The hijack folds, and yes, this is less than half the pot, but I don't think I'm gonna gamble here, especially when the initial raiser could have a pair of overcards like 10s, jacks, or queens. So I make the fold and the big blind fold as well. Okay, in this hand I'm in the cutoff and I look down at pocket 9s. The under the gun limps, it folds around to the hijack who limps, and I'm gonna bump this one up. So I raise it to 20 bucks and it folds around to the under the gun, makes the call, and the hijack folds. So we're heads up to a flop, which is 8-6-4 rainbow. The under the gun checks, and I'm definitely gonna c-bet here with my overpair, so I bet 25 bucks, about 2/3 the size of the pot, and the under the gun ends up folding. Pot was a little bit on the small side here, but I'll take it. A win is a win. In this hand, I'm in the under the gun +1 position, and I look down at pocket 6s. The under the gun limps, and as many of you know, I'm not a limper, so I decide to raise this one up. I raise it to 15 bucks. The middle position player calls the 15, the button calls, and the under the gun calls as well. So we are multi-way again into a flop, which is queen, jack, 3, all hearts. Alright, not the ideal flop here. The under the gun checks, I check, the middle position player bets 25 bucks. The button folds, the under the gun folds, and yep, definitely not sticking around with third pair and that flush potential out there, so I make the easy fold here. In this hand, I'm on the button and I look down at ace queen of clubs. Very pretty starting hand. The under the gun raises to $15, the +1 calls the 15, and this is definitely a good opportunity for a squeeze, but to this point I had raised every pot that I had entered so far, so I decided to make the call here instead to change things up a bit. The small blind calls and the big blind calls as well, so we are 5 ways to a flop, which is queen 6-8 with 2 clubs. Holy smokes. Small blind checks, the big blind checks, and it actually ends up checking to me. I've definitely got to put some money into this pot with my top and nut flush draw, so I bet 35 bucks and everyone ends up folding. I was kind of thinking I'd get a little bit more action here, but didn't. You know, at least I won the pot here, so I'll take it. Okay, in this hand, I'm in the big blind and I'll look down at king 9 offsuit. The low jack just sat back down at the table and posted his blind, so it folds to the low jack who makes the check. Then it folds around to me and I make the check as well. The pot is a whopping 8 bucks and the flop is 8, jack, 6, rainbow. I decide to bluff a bit and lead out here for 10 bucks and the low jack makes the call. The turn is the 3 of spades, so he might have hit something off the flop given that he called my $10 flop bet. This time I check, but the low jack checks as well. What could he have here? Is he on a draw of some sort? The river is the 7 of hearts. Now I've got the 9 blocker to the straight, so I don't think he hit whatever he was looking for. So I bet $15 and the low jack ends up folding. Small pot here, but I'll take it. In this hand, I'm in the low jack position and I look down at pocket aces, this time of the red variety. The under the gun limps, of course I'm putting more money into this pot, so I raise it to 15 bucks and it folds back around to the under the gun, who makes the call. So we're heads up to a flop, which is king 7 king rainbow. The under the gun checks, again gonna try to build this pot here, so I bet 15 bucks and the under the gun player folds. Man, where's the action when you have aces? Sure, a bunch of you have run into this before. Well, small pot here again, but I'll take it. Okay, in this hand, I'm in the big blind and I look down at 10 jack of spades. It folds around to the button, who raises to $15. Of course, I'm going to defend my blind with this hand, so that's what I do. A case could be made to put in the raise here, but I made the call instead, see what happens on the flop. So we're heads up to a flop, which is queen 8-3 all spades. Okay, so I hit the world here. Flop the flush and have a gutter to a straight flush. Okay, that works. I check being out of position and the button checks as well. The turn is the 6 of clubs, so I'm definitely putting money in the pot now. But what's the best bet sizing here? I end up going with about a third of the size of the pot to see if I can keep him in. So I bet 10 bucks and unfortunately he ends up folding. Another small pot won here, but that's okay. Okay, in this hand I started the video a bit late, but I'm in the cutoff and I look down at ace queen offsuit. The under the gun raises to $12 and I am the only caller. Now given that he raised from under the gun, it gave me a bit of pause to 3-bet here, so I made the call instead. Let me know what you think. Should I have raised the under the gun player with that ace queen offsuit in that position? Regardless, we are heads up to a flop, which is queen 10 rainbow. Holy smokes, I hit trips right off the bat here, and the under the gun player bets. He puts in $12, and of course I'm going to call, so that's what I do. The turn is the 3 of spades. This time the under the gun bets $15. At this point I've got to put more money into the pot, so I raised to $55, which yes is an odd spot to raise, but had I raised off the flop, I think that would have telegraphed my hand a bit too much. But he ends up making the call. Yes sir. The river is the 5 of clubs. Now I want to go for some value here, so I put in nearly a pot-sized bet of $150, and unfortunately he quickly folds. That's alright, I'll take it. Decent sized pot here. In this hand, I'm in the +1 position, and I look down at ace-queen offsuit. Yep, again. I open for $12, and it folds around to the cutoff, who 3-bets to $40. Don't think I'm going to go anywhere with my ace-queen, so I make the call. We are heads up to a flop, which is king, queen, 9 rainbow. Alright. So I've got middle pair here, top kicker. I check to the aggressor, who bets $50. It's certainly possible he has a king here, but I think I'm going to peel one off, so I make the call. The turn is the 5 of clubs. I check, and this time the cutoff checks as well. So maybe he doesn't have a king and he was c-betting with a queen, maybe something like queen jack or queen 10 suited, but he did 3-bet me pre-flop, so it's still possible he's trapping with an ace-king type of hand. The river is the 3 of diamonds. Given that he checked the turn, I put out a smallish size kind of semi-bluff bet here of $80, make it look like I'm betting for value. Unfortunately, he calls pretty quickly and shows king 8 suited. Man, bummer on this one. Not sure if betting more here on the river would have gotten him off the pot. Given the low stakes, I don't think it would have. In hindsight, I probably should have just checked the river here, but who knows if he would have bet on the river. Likely not with the small kicker, so I think I lost out on this one. Okay, in this hand I started the video a tad late, but I'm under the gun and I look down at another premium, pocket kings. I open for $12 and it folds around to the cutoff, who makes the call. Small blind decides he wants to play as well, so he makes the call as well. We're 3 ways to a flop, which is ace, queen, deuce, rainbow. Small blind checks. I check as there is still a player behind me, plus that ace is out there, which is a pretty scary one, but the cutoff ends up checking as well. The turn is the jack of clubs. Small blind checks, and I think I might be good here, so I put in a $16 bet, about a 40% of the size for the pot, and the cutoff and small blind both fold. Small pot again, but, I'll take it. In this hand, I'm in the under the gun position, and I look down at ace-jack offsuit. I open for $12, my standard raise this session. +1 makes the call, and it folds around to the small blind, who makes the call as well, and the big blind folds. So we are 3 ways to a flop, which is 6-3 king with 2 hearts. Small blind checks. I check being out of position, and the +1 bets $20. Small blind folds, and I think I'm going to make the call here. This guy always stabbed at the pot when it checked to him during this session. Plus he's shown me a lot of bluffs so far, so I make the call. The turn is the 3 of hearts. Now the front door flush gets there. I check, and the +1 checks as well. So that tells me he likely was just stabbing at the pot on the flop. The river is the 10 of diamonds, and this time it's my turn to try to stab at this thing. So I bet $30, which in hindsight think was a bit too small. Either that or I was just giving off a tell or something, because after thinking about it for a solid minute, he ends up making the call. I show my ace high and he shows pocket sevens, so the bluff didn't work too well. Likely just too small of a bet size, or maybe should have raised him off the flop when I was fairly certain he was just stabbing? Regardless, the bluff didn't work in this situation and I lose a pot here. Okay, in this hand I'm in the big blind and I look down at Queen Jack offsuit. The low jack limps, the cutoff limps, the button limps, and I make the check here. If this was suited, I'd consider raising this one up, but I ended up checking. We are 4 ways to a flop, which is 8-5 jack with 2 hearts. Alright, so I hit top pair here. Average kicker? I check being out of position and it ends up checking around. The turn is the 7 of diamonds. This time I bet $10. The low jack folds, the cutoff calls the $10, and the button folds. The river is the queen of diamonds. Alright, so top 2 pair here. I bet $25 and the cutoff raises to $50. Is it possible he hit the straight on the turn? He didn't raise, so I'm thinking it's not likely. I end up making the call here. I show my top 2 and he shows ace-7 of hearts for the turn 2 pair. Wow, that river saved me on that one. I'll definitely take that. Okay, shortly before this hand I added on for an additional $200. Here I'm in the hijack position and I look down at ace-10 offsuit. The low jack raises to $20 and here I think I'm going to go ahead and play this like I have pocket aces. So I raise to $60. It folds back around to the low jack who makes the call. So we are heads up to a flop, which is 8-7 deuce rainbow. The low jack checks. I bet $55 here, which is a little less than half the pot, and the low jack makes the call. The turn is the 6 of clubs. He checks, and this time I put out a heftier sized bet of $100, and this time he thinks about it for a bit and starts thinking out loud, saying, do you have aces, kings, or maybe bluffing with ace king? Now this is telling me he likely has either queens, jacks, or maybe tens at this point, but he ends up making the call. The river is the 5 of hearts. He checks, and this time I bet $175, and this definitely puts him in a pickle. At this point, I'm nearly 100% certain he's got queens, jacks, or tens, and he goes into the tank for a solid 3 minutes. So I know he doesn't have pocket nines, or he definitely would have called immediately. And he ends up calling. Dang it. I show my ace high, and he shows pocket jacks. Well, it didn't work here. I'm not sure if I'm giving off a tell or what, but I lost a big one. What do you guys think? In low stakes poker, can you get 3 streets of value on a bluff? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Okay, after the previous hand I added on for an additional $300, so I'm now in the game for a total of $1,000. In this hand, I'm in the small blind and I look down at king queen offsuit. We are 6-handed at this point. The under the gun raises to $10, the hijack calls, the button calls. I make the call here, and like the hand a couple hands ago, I probably would have put on the squeeze if this was suited, but I make the call and the big blind calls as well. So we are 5 ways to a flop, which is 3 queen jack rainbow. I check being out of position and it ends up checking around. The turn is the 8 of spades, and at this point I need to start putting money into the pot, so I put in about a half-size pot bet here of $25 and everyone else folds. I'll take the win. A bit frustrating, it's another small pot, but that's okay. A win is a win. Okay, in this hand, I'm on the button and I look down at ace-jack offsuit. It folds around to the cutoff, who bets $15. Again, a case could be made to put in the 3-bet, but I decide to make the call, and the small blind and big blind both fold. So we are heads up to a flop, which is 8-5-5 rainbow. Cutoff C-bets for $15. I make the call here. It's a decent price and have some overcards. The turn is the 7 of hearts. The cutoff checks, and this time I make the check here as well. Not really liking how this board is coming along. River is the king of diamonds. This time the cutoff bets $30. It's certainly possible he hit the king here, or really has any pocket pair, maybe like 4s or 6s. Don't think it's really worth staying in the hand at this point, so I make the fold. Okay, in this hand, I just returned to the table and bought the blinds. I'm in the small blind and I look down at ace-4 offsuit. The under the gun limps, the low jack limps, and I make the check here. I don't think there's any point in raising this hand. The pot is a whopping $10 and the flop is king, queen, ace with 2 clubs. I make my standard out of position check and the under the gun player bets $20. Low jack gets out of the way and I make the call here with my top pair, hoping to get something a bit more here on the turn. The turn is the 2 of hearts. I check and the under the gun bets $50 this time. This is the same player that was stabbing a lot at the pots the whole evening, and this time I decide to put in the raise to $125. However, he snap jams all in. At this point, I'm just shooting myself in the foot for trying to semi-bluff at this pot. Pretty clear he has jack 10, and I actually asked him if I fold, will he show? He said that he would. I ended up folding, and he does in fact show the jack 10. Man, another attempt at a bluff and another pot that got away. At some point I think I'm going to learn my lesson this evening. Okay, Okay, in this hand I'm in the middle position and I'll look down at King Queen offsuit. I open for 12 bucks and the cutoff is the only player that makes the call. The pot is a little under 30 bucks and we're heads up to a flop, which is King 4 Queen Rainbow. Okay, so I hit top 2 pair here, and the good thing is the table has seen me bluff a few times now. I check being out of position and the cutoff checks as well. The turn is the 8 of spades. This time I lead out for a little under half pot with a bet of 12 bucks and the cutoff makes the call. The river is the king of spades. Okay, so now I've got the nuts. What's the best bet sizing here? I think I can go a bit larger than usual, maybe make it seem like I'm bluffing again, but I end up going with about a pot size bet here of 50 bucks and the cutoff actually makes the call and I take this one down. Decent sized pot here of just over 150 bucks. In this hand I'm in the small blind and I look down at pocket fours. The end of the gun raises to $15 and it folds all the way around to myself and I make the call. And the big blind folds. So we're heads up to a flop, which is 6-7-3 rainbow. Alright, so I've got a gutter and third pair here. I'll make my standard check and the under the gun bets 10 bucks. This is definitely a callable hand, so that's what I do. I make the call. The pot is a little over 50 bucks and the turn is the 6 of spades. I check and this time the under the gun makes the check as well. The river is the 10 of clubs. I'm probably pretty good here. In all likelihood, he's got something like ace king or ace jack, something like that. However, I make the check. And he ends up checking as well. I show my pocket fours and take it down. I'll take it. Okay, in this hand I'm in the big blind and I look down at King 9 of diamonds. The end of the gun just sat down on the table and a chip runner is in the process of getting his chips. So he actually has $300 behind. He announces $15. The cutoff makes the call and I call as well. So we are 3 ways to a flop, which is 7-9-7 rainbow. I check and the under the gun announces 15 bucks again. Cutoff folds and I'm definitely sticking around with my top pair, so I make the call. The turn is the king of clubs. Okay, so now I've upgraded. Top 2 pair. I check and the under the gun checks as well. Kind of a standard theme going on at this table. Even though this guy just sat down, people tend to c-bet the flop and then check the turn. The river is the king of spades. Heck yeah, I boat up again. I put in a nearly pot-sized bet of 65 bucks and I wished I put in more. He makes the call, I show my boat and he shows pocket jacks and I win a pretty decent sized pot here. Oh, and quick note, this guy was pretty thrilled to make the vlog, along with the other guy that called my 3 street bluff hand from a bit ago. I want to say both were nice gentlemen and I enjoyed playing with them. Thanks guys. In this hand I'm in the middle position and I look down at pocket 10s. It's actually probably one of my least favorite hands, to be honest. It's a hand you're supposed to raise. In any case, the under the gun limps, I raise to 15 bucks. The hijack 3 bets to 45 bucks. The under the gun folds and of course I'm going to make the call here, so that's what I do. We're heads up to a flop, which is 9 jack queen with 2 clubs. Alright, so I've got an open ender here. I check and the hijack actually checks as well this time. The turn is the 9 of hearts. Doesn't really change much, I think. I check and the hijack bets $50. Now I've still got an open ender here and about a 4 to 5% chance of hitting a 10 and completely stacking this guy. So I make the call. The pot is a little under 200 bucks at this point and the river is the 6 of spades. Well, I hit air, absolutely nothing. I check and he bets 75 bucks. Yeah, it's a really good price, but there's just too much that can beat me here, so I make the fold. He shows pocket aces and you know what? That makes sense. Okay, in this hand I'm in the small blind and I look down at a couple of red queens. Oh yeah. The under the gun limps, the cutoff raises to 6 bucks. Okay. I 3-bet to 26 bucks. The under the gun makes the call and the cutoff makes the fold. So we are heads up to a flop, which is 8-6-5 rainbow. I make my standard out of position check and the under the gun checks as well. The turn is the 9 of diamonds. Gotta put money in the pot now, so I bet 35 bucks, just over half size pot bet here, and the under the gun ends up folding. Small pot, but I'll take it. In this hand I'm under the gun and I look down at some more red cards, this time of the 9 variety. You know, to me, 9s play a lot like the 10s, should be raising pre-flop, but don't seem to work too well post-flop. At least for me over the past several sessions. Could be I may not be playing them right. I don't know, let me know what you think in the comments below. Regardless, in this hand I open for 12 bucks, middle position player calls and the cutoff calls as well. So we are 3 ways to a flop, which is 10-5-8 rainbow. I make my standard check and it ends up checking around. The turn is the ace of clubs. You know, had anything lower than an 8 hit on the turn, I likely would have bet here. But as it was an ace, I make the check and it actually checks around again. The river is the 9 of spades. Alright, so I hit my set. I bet 25 bucks. The middle position player thinks about a bit and makes the call. The cutoff folds. I show my set and she mucks, so I take this one down. Okay folks, I'm in the low jack position in this hand and I look down at ace 9 of spades. The under the gun player bets 10 bucks and I decide to 3-bet to $30 here against this guy, who I knew was tilted after losing the past few hands. It folds back around to the under the gun, who jams for his remaining stack, which is only 36 bucks more for me to call. So I make the call and he shows King Jack offsuit. The flop is King 5 Jack, all hearts. Great. The turn is the 4 of spades and the river is the 10 of spades. I muck and get a bit unlucky in this hand. You know, that's okay. I think I made the right decision here pre-flop and in this scenario. Okay, this is a full rotation later. I'm in the low jack and I look down at ace queen offsuit. The middle position player raises to $15 and I'm going to 3-bet here to single him out, so I bet 45 bucks. It folds around back to the middle position player who makes the call. The pot is a little under 100 bucks and the flop is 8 queen ace rainbow. Doesn't get much better than that. Middle position player checks and I put out the same $45 bet. He thinks about it for a bit and makes the fold, so I take this one down pretty quickly here. Okay folks, this is the final hand of the evening. I'm on the button and I look down at King 10 offsuit. The middle position player limps, the cutoff limps, and I do the unthinkable here folks. I actually limp. Yes, I know, I limped. Big blind checks, so we are multi-way into a flop, which is Queen 4-10 with 2 spades. It checks to the cutoff who bets 10 bucks. I make the call with my second pair here. The big blind folds and the middle position player makes the call as well. So we are 3 ways to a turn, which is the 9 of spades. Okay, so the front door flush gets there. Middle position player checks and the cutoff bets 20 bucks here. And yeah, there's no way I'm good at this point. So I fold and the middle position player folds as well. Cutoff told me as I was leaving the table that he turned the flush and was on a straight flush draw. So yeah, I was definitely not good there.
Okay, is anybody superstitious out there? I think I am, because the last time I wore this shirt, I was at the lodge and had a tremendously large beatdown. Well, very similar story here, except I don't know that it was bad beats. I think it was bad play. Honestly, I think I bluffed one too many times. There were 3 hands that I know that I bluffed and probably shouldn't have. In a 1-3 game, I think you just can't bluff. I don't know. I played that one hand, ace 10 offsuit, like I had pocket aces. I bet all 3 streets. The guy had pocket jacks, and you know what? He called. Good call for him. But another rough session. I played for about 5.5 hours. Was in for 1,000, out for 243, for a loss of, what is that, 757? 2 rough sessions out of the last 3. You know what? That's okay. I'm headed to Vegas this coming week. So stay tuned. I will be playing at the Aria. I'll be playing at Venetian's new poker room and at Bellagio as well, and the Wynn. So please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Take care.